Hello and welcome to CSR Live, and thank you for being with us here today. So, before anything, can we just start with a little introduction about you and the whole organization for our audiences?
Yeah. So, Varun, I had a company called Fiinovation. It's actually Innovative Financial Advisors Private Limited. Our operational activity started from 2008, September 28th. And the foundation was laid on a basic fact that, we need to structure our organization in a certain way that we can structure the entire resource uh, mobilization to management format in the development space. So there were already a lot of players in the space, but our need to establish this institution was not laid on a competitive analysis. We basically wanted to, we identified through our, so I'll give you a small background of where we all come from. So I'm a trained pilot, but I left it, and then we sort of few minds got together, and we thought that we had some experience in social space. We were conceiving initiatives, and we were managing some of the initiatives at that point of time. And we thought, why don't we get into it? Because we saw a great gap in both in terms of trust as well as management of resources. Now, when I talk of resources, it is not only the financial capital resources, but I would say to a great extent intellectual resources also. And we thought of pooling that gap, narrowing that gap as much as possible, although we were very sure about the fact that the gap is huge and it will take a huge amount of time for us to do that. But we wanted to make sure that we make the first move advantage. Now, when we started, the going was not at all good, because we identified corporate social responsibility as a core domain, because we thought that with the growing um, liberalization and the economics growing of a country, the GDP going up at that time, we thought that it's only a matter of time before companies start adopting to more responsible standards of operation, as well as giving back to the society. Initially, it was a great amount of hurdle for us, because people did not take it very seriously. They thought it's an auxiliary jewelry in the boardroom. And therefore, usually these reports, the CSR reports, used to be the last few pages of auxiliary notes of any board meeting or any board note. But after a couple of years, I think somewhere around 2011, after repeated hitting with companies and discussing with them on various platforms, we got to understand that the companies are now actually adopting to corporate social responsibility standards. It's not that bad as it seems to be, and it's not actually bad even today. And then obviously the catalyst was
Yeah.
the mandate which came into play in
Actually,
2013.
yeah, I was so sorry to interrupt you because that was my next question that I was going to jump onto because you have been operating since before 2014.
Correct.
So I wanted to know did the implementation or the actual strictness in the CSR law that was basically implemented in 2014 starting, did that make a major change in the functioning for your organization as well?
Um, if you ask me, Varun, sincerely, on the top line component, I think yes, it made a huge difference, because now, both in terms of implementing partners, the civil society was more aware of corporate social responsibility. One of the things that happened is, after the mandate, is the government spoke about corporate social responsibility quite openly. Now, this was not something that was not on the central agenda. This was now a central agenda. So you saw events lined up as corporate social responsibility events. You saw companies promoting their corporate social responsibility initiatives. Although I must accept that there were a lot of companies which are already doing a phenomenal amount of work, but there are a lot of companies which intended to, I would rather be positive on it, but didn't have the conviction, because there was no push on the legislature front. But now these companies were upfront, and they, because of the reporting, they had to come out with their publication of their initiatives. And this brought corporate social responsibility into the discussion forum. How much of it has made into an impact, Varun, I will only be able to make an analysis after 10 years, because some of these initiatives are so long run. And during that phase of the long run of the operations, what happens is, suppose the rider was so typical that if a company goes loss making in somewhere in mid, the project is left in the lurch. And I've had some experiences, our organization had some experiences of managing such projects where companies shut down. And with immediately, for a 10-year project or a 7-year project, if you shut down in 3 years, you won't be able to analyze the impact, although the investments for the 3 years were made. So this became a great fallacy, and then came obviously the pandemic, and a lot of civil society organizations, and now what is happening around. So I would say the journey has been pretty good, pretty good actually. I think we have phenomenally grown at 30 to 35% every year. I think I've had the opportunity to work with some of the best minds of the industry, which makes me more confident about the fact that there are a lot of people who are taking corporate social responsibility very, very seriously, right?
Yeah,
And
that,
if in
that
one line I can just tell you that why such pandemics, why such situations, and I would say if corporates actually conduct themselves in a responsible fashion, we could have avoided this pandemic, and trees would not have been cut, zoonotic diseases would not have come the way from 2010. If you see continuously, we are having one after another. Zika, Nipah, COVID is the latest one, SARS. So, if I understand the CSR ethos as very simple. If I'm responsible, suppose for example, I always speak in the terms of a nursery kid. So if I'm responsible corporate, and I abjure from cutting trees, I do not get into somebody else's habitat. They don't have to come out and spread these diseases through other means. So somewhere down the line, I think corporate greed has played a role. How much, only history will judge it, right?
Yeah, I think it all roots back. That is absolutely correct. And actually, I feel that what the changes I've seen in the last, a decade, if I may so, that corporates are also starting to realize that the social image also plays a very huge role for them in the market. So I think that is also a very big pushing factor for the corporates nowadays to actually go out there and try to make a difference rather than just the government trying to interfere there as well. And that is absolutely correct, and the work the whole foundation does is commendable. Let me just get that out of the way first. So coming to my next question, I actually wanted to know that so Fiinovation, does it only provide a roadmap for the corporates for how the CSR activity should be planned, or you guys have a role to play in the execution part as well?
Okay, so we have. If you go into it, we are. I would take some sort of pride in saying that we have been able to mechanize the process of CSR implementation, if I may call so. Uh, so what we do is we not only advise the corporates and design a strategy according to their need and understanding, and these initiatives can range from the simplest of the initiative of health awareness to the highest of the initiatives like phytoremediation and all those stuff. Um, what we do is we strategize, we give them a concept, we have detailed discussions. It goes over months with the corporations, and then we come to a conclusion. What we do then is we play a major role in three aspects. One, the designing. Two, selection of the implementing partner. That is very, very crucial, right? And with an insurance um, in the strategy that if something goes wrong with the implementing partner, then we will replace it by an effective partner, or we will execute the project ourselves to actually ensure the goal is achieved. Third, and the most important part, the corporations are actually absolved of the headache of monitoring the project regularly. So what we do is we design a dashboard, and our footfall is there on every single project site. So we actually monitor it on a monthly or a quarterly basis with videos, photographs, written reports, beneficiary assessments, which are done all the time according to the periodical set in the strategy. And these reports are, it is ensured that these reports actually reach the corporations and the donors much before the deadlines that we have agreed to. So what the corporations get is they don't have to do much of it. They have to just agree on a principle of the project, and then the entire management of the project with the implementing partner and the donor lies with us. So we have specific teams which specializes in certain areas of project like health, education, livelihood, skills, and all those stuff. And we have project management teams, which we call it as the project management unit, which basically ensures that these projects are managed and they're executed as per the agreed deadline. So our role does not end at the designing component, but we actually finish the project, do an impact analysis, and then get out of the project. That's it, end to end.
Okay, so actually, I was just trying. This really intrigued me because I wanted to ask you, how exactly does this work? Do the corporates actually come to you, or do you guys go to the corporates with a pitch that you can help them have a very efficient CSR activity? How does this work exactly?
So this works both ways with our partners whom we have worked for last 8-10 years. there is a word to mouth publicity, and a lot of corporations approach us with respective uh, projects. Sometimes we are not able to, but most of the times we are able to help them with their projects, number one. But it happens the other way around also, Varun. We also have a dedicated alliance team which actually stays in touch with the corporations at a regular level. And then as the ideas come up, as so we have a system, we have a team here which we call it as a proposal or initiative research laboratory. What we do there is we try to create a pool of ideas which are currently needed, which are currently feasible given the socio-economic structure of a specific geography where we think that there is a need for this project. And then this idea is pitched to the corporates, to the corporations, to the various stakeholders, and then we get on with it. We pitch it to the government, we pitch it to various institutions of the government, and then the alliance team actually pitches it. And then as we conclude the partnership, it goes into the PMU and the project management unit, and then look after the complete
Uh,
process.
Okay. This actually brings me to my next question. That what kind of research does exactly go into making sure that there's this efficient value-based CSR happening? What kind of research do you guys actually dwell into for these kind of activities?
Right. So research happens on two platforms, right? On two sides of the number line. One is that there is a difference between a felt need and a real need, right? My assumption is 60 to 70% of the projects which are conceived, nothing to take away from the civil society organizations, but 60 to 70% of the projects that they think are needed are based on felt need, right? But a felt need needs a detailed data analytics and a detailed study on the ground to convert that felt need into a real need. Because what happens is when a corporation would want, these are private companies. These are companies where they treat every rupee as an investment. They don't treat it as grant. So they would actually, they're coming from a school of thought where they're backed by a sane data centric system, which should justify the need of the intervention that they should get into. Now, how do you assess this need? This need is understood by first you take the input on a baseline, then there is a need assessment, right? Then you go back to the beneficiaries, you conduct a detailed understanding of the space, you talk to various stakeholders, you prepare a report. So these are separate reports actually, which are prepared. These are printed reports which are sent to corporations to give them a highlight of how and why the project is needed on the ground. So then they come back to us and say that, okay, we want in principle, we are okay with the project, but how do we proceed? And then the strategy paper starts getting developed. So then our senior management, senior program teams get into play. They talk to various stakeholders. We design a concept. We design as per highest optimal utilization of the budget and how it can make an impact to the Human Development Index overall. And then this report is submitted to the corporations. So once that in principle, that paper is ready, then we obviously get in touch with the implementing partners. So we have somewhere around 2,500 to I think 2,700 implementing partners across India. And when I'm saying across India, I think I'm talking about from Ladakh to Kanyakumari, and I'm talking to Run of Kutch to the Arunachal Pradesh. So we have the entire band with, and we have implementing partners with whom we then collaborate. We call them for a meeting. We sit with the donors interact, and then after multiple discussions, we come to a final conclusion, and that's how the research gets transformed into an initiative.
Okay, okay, that's actually pretty interesting. So now we have been in lockdown since last, I guess, a year now, and 2020 has been kind of terrible. So,
Hmm.
are there actually some recent projects that are going on from your organization side, or are the old projects in continuation, or are you guys reaching to corporates with some Corona, based initiatives or
So
something?
I'll tell you, yeah. So as the COVID situation came in, right, I heard a lot of opinion about people, taking a back step. But I think COVID is a situation where I think social and especially social development organizations need to play on the front foot. These are the times that these institutions were built for, right? And if at these times we are not able to stand and withstand this pandemic pressure, right? Yes, of course, I agree that on an operational part there are consolidations that need to be done because the market size goes low. There are companies who are funding you, uh, are going into losses, right? But at the same time, I think we have a responsibility, and the responsibility cannot be the bottom line only. The responsibility is to ensure that we stand straight in these times and able to reach out to people. So for example, when the COVID situation came in, and I must uh, give accolades to my entire team. this, we went into a lockdown, but let me tell you, we were never locked out. So we went into a lockdown, people were working from their home, our teams were on the field. And it would surprise you that 60% of our annual revenue this year actually came in during the lockdown period. And that happened because our partners were ready. We went to our partners and said, look, this is terrible what is happening, people are losing livelihood, there is no uh, um, assurance of health right now, and we want to do something. You would be shocked to realize that we actually implemented projects across India during the lockdown phase. Right. So to give you some examples, I'll tell you, we worked with Dhampur Sugar, Sandvik Asia, SMS Group, Admitad, and we covered everywhere. We were in Bhubaneswar, we were in Calcutta, we were in Delhi, Gurgaon, we were in Udaipur, Pune, and you can see all of that. And that's all in the digital space, whatever has happened. And I think the initial burst was of, taking material and delivering it to people, which became a problem because of the logistical issues of how do we reach out. And I think for the corporations, they saw light in Fiinovation, because they partnered with us, and we could take kits and material, immediate required material, ensure that some geographies do not suffer through hunger during those times till the last mile, and we could reach there. But I would not stop at it, Varun. I think the corporations have started looking beyond COVID to a certain extent. They have started realizing that yes, COVID is here for some time and we're going to deal with it. But there is another pocket which is like non-COVID initiatives. For example, we have just started phytoremediation projects in Udaipur, Hyderabad, in Patancheru, and Pune. I think it's a completely different ball game where trees are not. It's not a plantation project itself, but it's also to neutralize the toxicity in the soil. And I think a big mining company has partnered with us, Sandvik, which has gone ahead and implemented those projects on the ground. And now with our implementing partners, we are going ahead. At the same time, we are working on income generation, we are working on rehabilitation, we are working on skilling. And if you want my opinion, I think now is the time when the corporations and organizations like us will have to have the support of the implementing partners, because of the lack of accessibility and travel, that now we realize that the civil society organizations will have to partner with us. And if that happens, Varun, then we can actually look at, I may be right now too optimistic, but I can actually look at a platform where vaccine delivery can also happen through these channels. And I think COVID is a time when these are the times that we were built for. So it's not a time to step back.
Absolutely, and I totally agree with you when you say that even the vaccine distribution can happen through these channels, because these are the channels that go to the roots of our country, because
Right.
they reach to places where we cannot even imagine to reach. So
Right.
absolutely, that I absolutely agree with. So what I wanted to know is that how do you actually measure or calculate the results or the benefits that are actually happening on the ground level? Is there any statistical tool that you use, or is there some survey that you conduct? How do you exactly measure or calculate the result?
Okay. So, see, one is that we strictly follow a result based management matrix. It's very simple, Varun. It does not require one thing. As a company, what we do is we try to adhere to simplistic terms. Now, when why we started this company is when we worked in some other organizations, we realized they use a lot of other tools. These tools, when they reach the boardrooms or the beneficiaries, neither of the parties understand what these tools say. Right. So there's an old saying that the financial industry uses terms that you and I normally don't understand if we don't have financial terms, and that is how they control the space. We thought we'll break that glass wall. We developed our own tools. We kept it very simple, and one of the things that helped us in growing is the fact that when corporations realize these reports I can understand, whether it is technology, whether it is writing, whether it is a book, I think we tend to get attracted to more simplistic forms of communication. And one of the things that we initially decided is we'll go, so there are log frame and there are ABC, a lot of things, GRIs and all that stuff. But we decided that we'll go with result based management. Why? I'll tell you two important parameters of it. One, every micro stage has an analysis component built into it, which helps us to understand whether the micro goals have been achieved, and according to the deviation in the goals, if any, then how the next step has to be organized. So by the time you reach the final stage, you would have already done an analysis of all the micro stages. and so the potential error margin is relatively less. But we don't stop at it. At the end of the project, we do an end line, which is to ensure that the outcomes that we wanted to achieve have they been achieved or not. And finally, after a time interval, we do an impact analysis. So the ultimate project is right from the strategy time to the impact analysis. Our basic fundamental understanding is that we want to derive is, has it reached and got an impact that we desired? And that impact analysis report, when we give it to the corporations, it becomes very easy for them and us and the implementing partner to understand, yes, whether we have been able to achieve that impact as we projected or forecasted for.
Okay, and I think the corporates would also, feel more involved in the
Yep.
process if they're
Yep.
if they're actually able to understand the reports and the results. That's absolutely great. Actually, I just wanted to know your opinion, so because you have been in this field for so long. So, did this new ESG that has been incorporated now, and corporates are really trying to follow it, and do you think this actually made a difference, or this is something that is just there for them to improve their social image and try to improve their profits? Ultimately, it's just some big corporate move.
I think right now it is not showing any great result, to be very frank, right now. But I would rather not rule it out, because you see, it takes a bit of time. Varun, we have to understand this space, and with this volatility of the socio-economic situation right now, companies themselves are involved in a lot of. Right now, they themselves are in a rehabilitation mode, right? They have taken a big hit. I think most of the companies in India have taken a big hit. I think we'll have to give it at least 3 to 4 years more. Some And once we are able to see that the current pandemic situation stabilizes a bit, when investments are regular, even if less, they're regular, then I think it's only a matter of time. And this is not something that people will have a choice for too long. I think this is not something that people can opt for, to be oblivion about it for too long. I think it's only a matter of time before it becomes a must for everyone, right? So it's like the washing hands. Our grandfathers and grandmothers have been telling us to wash our hands at least 4 to 5 times a day properly and then sit down to have food. But we have been ignorant about it, and we have chosen to be ignorant about it and taken pride in it. But today, you don't have that choice. This is what it saves life. For example, Lifebuoy's campaign, washing hands campaign, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years that they run it, people took it, whereas the doctors have been saying it, washing your hands resolves a lot of issues and the diseases, but we have been taking it lightly. So I think both in terms of, I'm drawing a parallel here, but even in terms of ESG, I think we'll have to give it some time. Right now, the corporations are pretty occupied with their own institutional relief and rehabilitation. They have to get their charts back. But I think, Varun, to be very optimistic, which I am, I think ESG is not a matter of choice. 2 years down the line, it's not going to be a matter of choice.
And I think we all need to be optimistic here, because we all need to hope that this actually gives out the results that we actually hope for.
Exactly, exactly.
So, I was reading about Fiinovation, and I was reading about the organization, and I saw you guys have your own CSI initiative that you guys work in education and health. So, are there actually any recent projects that are going on from your side?
So we have a CSR arm of our company, which is called Center for CSR and Sustainability Excellence. It is called CCSE. We formed this foundation about 3 to 4 years back, 3.5 years back, with an idea that because all of us, I would love your team to come and visit us one day. You will see the relative. Um, and don't take me wrong, there are very senior people, very mature people who are very good. But I think what we have done is we have kept the average age of the organization pretty young. At the age of 41, I'm one of the oldest employees of the organization, right? Elders of the organization. So what happens is, with the young generation coming in, with the millennials coming in, they want, they have a limit to their greed. They now, yes, they want to look after themselves. They want to look after themselves pretty well. But at the same time, I'm very hopeful of this generation, because they also want to take it one step forward. They want to see how it reverses back. And that is a pretty positive indication for me. I'm not very hopeless about this organization. In fact, I'm about this generation, I'm pretty optimistic about it. What we all sat down and we said, okay, there was an organic pressure that we need to now do something ourselves. So we thought that let's open a foundation, but let's build up the experience. Let's not rush into something and create a sort of a mayhem in the structure. So we set up the Center for CSR and Sustainability Excellence. We thought we'll focus on three important issues. We'll focus on education, we'll focus on health, and we'll focus on awareness. So we started the Detox series, where we started talking about, for example, we did about cyberbullying. We did a huge event in Delhi on cyberbullying, where we brought experts from across India, and we got students from various colleges, and we told them what is cyberbullying and how to face it, what to do, and everything. Similarly, we adopted a school in Faridabad. It is called Pragyam, by the name Pragyam, and the school has about 150 kids right now, who are basically belonging to the family of the rag pickers, and they didn't have access to education, so or healthy lifestyle. I think what we did with the institution on ground is we got them to the school, we established the school, we get them in the morning, we give them due meals, we educate them, so we got them to do uniforms. And what we wanted to do with that practice is, when you set up a structure where you want to reflect, want the kids to go back and stand themselves as an example, they went back to the communities in the evening. So we didn't believe in residential, because then you would actually create a barrier where these kids would come out and they would not feel owned up by the community that they belong. So our education team actually got into play, and a marvelous concept that they came up with is they would be sent back to their communities in the evening, so that I'm talking in a very layman term, Varun, but when these kids, they go into their community wearing uniforms like any convent educated kid, and they start speaking in English and fluent languages, and they go through the educational process. uh, they set up the example. They are our micro heroes. They are our heroes in the community. Rather than me going and thrusting upon a change which will face a lot of resistance, here are 150 tiny shoots which tomorrow will grow up as trees and give shade to a lot of people. And we have seen an influx of students who now want to come and join it. And after we do it from nursery to class 5, and in class 6 we have tie-ups with some schools where we actually mainstream them, and then we take care of their expenses till they pass class 12. So we are planning to also upskill them once they cross class 10, but our first batch will come out about in a couple of years. So we are pretty hopeful. So we wanted to focus on doing one thing at a time and doing it really good, and trying to have some social engineering experiments there and there.
That's actually beautiful, and that's great. So what and you being so optimistic about this generation have is showing me that you are actually inspiring this generation as well, because more and more people are getting involved in such social activities which we actually and desperately need in our country.
Right.
Dr. Chakraborty, I wanted to ask you something, that you have been in this field for so long. I want to take your take on the CSR policies and activities that are happening in India at this level. Do you think we need to improve, and if yes, then how? How can the corporates or the government improve in this aspect?
See, I think one of the things that we have to do is leave the corporations to decide where they want to put their money in the social sector. I think one of the things that I principally do not agree with the fact is that you first create a platform where you tell the corporations, look, we will give you absolute independence. You decide what you want to do, and then you tell us what you're doing, right? At the same time, when you create micro hubs and you say that, well, now the contribution has to come here. You can't give it there. You can't give it here. First of all, you create a Schedule 7, which has got strict. I agree with that. Okay, fine. It gives a reference point for everyone to where do I go. But at the same time, do not put a gun on anyone's head. I don't agree with the fact of, in the somewhere in a year back, the punishments came into highlight. I don't completely agree with this. Not with the sec that, you, first of all, when you put a 2% bar, you actually limit a lot of further investment. That is one of the negative aspects of it, right? So if you look at the West, they don't have a law, but the investments in social business, social responsibility initiatives is far more as a percentage of profit than 2%. So I think we rushed in with the 2% component. I think we should have given guidelines, and the guidelines should have been fought. But now that we have the 2%, I think, what makes us vulnerable is, I'll tell you very frankly. Now suppose the GDP is in a negative, right? The economy is contracting. Assumingly, the contraction rate is now flattening, and it will take about a quarter or 2 quarters to further flatten to bring it to a neutral position. What happens to our 2% now? What happens to our 2% now? So the companies which had a thought point, and if you could have given a guideline, there could have been a passive push to corporate social responsibility. But at the same time, to ensure that this continues, I think the penal provisions of the law will have to take a backseat sooner or later. At the same time, I think we need to identify and incentivize the civil society space. It is virtually impossible, Varun, for a corporation to function in Delhi and know the local dynamics of Itanagar in Arunachal Pradesh, right? And if you want to really look at investment in communities which need it, you need a civil society movement. Take, for example, Bangladesh. The kind of civil society movement you see in a country like Bangladesh, I think they have played a major role in getting the economy up and running. And I think that is where we'll have to. But yes, I do agree that there's a lot of malafide in that space also, right? It is without a single, we go through it ourselves. Yeah, I know that this happens all the time. But any sector, for that matter, any sector, any space has got wrong elements in it embedded, right? It is our job to ensure that we select the right partner. Our investments are not short term. And that is what I think the promoters and the investors of these companies will have to realize, that maybe you will park only 1 rupee, but you cannot see a quarterly return on a project which has got social ramifications in it. And I think that is what they will have to adapt to. These are long term investments, and human behavior and conduct change takes a long term to change. That's how it is. But I think CSR is here to stay and to grow. It's going nowhere.
True, and we absolutely agree. The whole team agrees with you because we have also personally, I have seen a lot of corporates engaging into CSR. I've spoken to a lot of them, and what I have noticed or realized is that a lot of corporates just perform CSR for the sake of it because they have to. So what they do is that they do mainstream projects, they give in the money, and they just show the results. But there are corporates then again make me optimistic to who actually care and want to make a difference. So they are
Correct.
actually reaching out and trying to actually create something that is
And there's
valuable.
a lot of them. And there's a
Yeah,
lot of them. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely, and there's majority of them. That is a good thing. So,
Yes.
Dr. Chakraborty, where do you see Fiinovation in the next 5 to 10 years? What's the future aim or goal of the foundation?
So I'll 10 years is a pretty long time right now. I think given the volatility of the situation, we have planned for the next 5 years. I think we intend and we are getting ready to play a major role in the COVID scenario in the next year. I think it's going to be a very, very dynamic year for us because the vaccine is expected somewhere around the third or the fourth quarter of 2021. And I think the government will require extensive help of private public partnership to take it through, not only in terms of resource mobilization, but also in terms of reachability to the last man counting. I think that is where the corporate social responsibility initiatives will have to come in a big way. Number one. Number two, I think we were actually planning to come with a public offer in 2022. But I think we'll have to delay it by a year. We'll have to allow the COVID to settle down a bit. And number three is we are going international next year. So somewhere around in the November or December next year, I think we are planning to take this service to South Africa and Singapore, and we are planning to launch our services there also as well. So this is in a micro shot what we do, but intending, I think our initial aim is to initiate that we should be able to manage about 200 220 odd projects next year.
That is great, and congratulations to you for having going international and all. And this is actually this was great because the work that innovation is doing and the work that you and the whole team is doing is commendable because we need people like you to actually come out and make a difference and actually for the audiences or for the people of this country to know that there are organizations like yours that are actually trying to
And
make
we need a lot more innovations. We need a lot more innovation. We
that,
need a lot of Soumitro and we need a lot of Varuns who can
that,
actually speak and go and expand on this horizon. There's a lot of scope, Varun, right?
absolutely.
And I think people should, if in a minuscule manner they can take an inspiration, fine. But otherwise, I think this generation, this population is focused by itself, and I think there are a lot of youngsters who will actually come out. You will see a lot of innovations in
I mean,
the next decade.
kind of being of this generation, this might sound a little selfish, but I actually agree with you, and I see a lot of hope because I see so many people trying to reach out and do so many new things,
Correct.
and in such an innovative manner that we couldn't have, thought like 5 years ago from this time.
Exactly.
So that
Exactly.
that that actually, makes me and I think people like us optimistic about the future. So thank you so much, Dr. Chakraborty, for joining us here, and thank you so much for giving us such an insightful, interview for our audiences and for the whole team of our CSR Live. Do you have some ending note that you want to tell our audiences or the people who are listening to us?
Yeah, I just first of all, I'd like to thank the CSR Live team. Thank you, Varun, for at least having an opportunity where, for the after a long time, in this plethora of interviews and webinars and all these things, I found somebody talking on the subject, to the subject, for the subject throughout. Because half of these interviews are actually marketing platforms where the subject goes for a toss and then you land up doing something else. So thank you so much for being on the agenda so specifically about it. One light note is that this country actually will need a lot of people in the next 1.5 year to help each other to come out, create a positive impact. My only request is, uh, be a human first, right? These are times when we would need to stay safe, we would need to take care of our families, but the definition of our families have to go beyond the corridors of our home. I think we need to really, really take care of our, even if we are able to create an impact for one life, I think this is the time. God has given you an opportunity. Stand out. I think we need to help each other, hold each other tight, and ensure that we have the minimal loss of lives, and we get out of this pandemic as fast as possible while taking the most scientifically analyzed precautions that we can take. So, thank you. And I hope all of us stay safe and all of our families stay safe. And please do take care.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I absolutely love the line that you said that we need to be human first, because this is the time where we have to come out and help each other, because this is the time, this is basically us being tested of
Absolutely.
how much actually we can endure and how much we can help each other.
Maybe this was the purpose we were built.
Absolutely. And I have this belief that we're gonna get out of this stronger and more united. And this is gonna be this for the after bigger image. I'm sure there's gonna be some good thing happening out of
I'm
it.
sure. I'm sure. Let's
Absolutely.
keep it.